Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the bonus stage on YouTube. This is episode I don't know what, but to be perfectly honest, I don't care.
I think it would be 17.
Probably 17, something like that. But the episodes are so far removed now that, why even bother counting?
Yeah.
And we are back with air quotes. We got a few things to kind of go over first really quickly here, and then we'll get into what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah.
The first of which, essentially, why we stopped posting on YouTube. Now, we posted a video, I want to say roughly a year ago. Actually, it's been more than a year because it was the first night that we did the radio show here at Kick FM. So for the last year and a half, tonight is our 62nd episode here for the radio show. Tom and I do a weekly radio show on our local college radio station, Kick FM 92.9 in Winnipeg. So for those of you who are in Winnipeg, you can listen every night at 11 o'clock, every Friday night at 11 o'clock.
Anybody in Winnipeg with MTS as well, they can also get the Galaxy radio channels.
Yes.
And they can hear us, so it doesn't matter if you're in Winnipeg, just as long as you have MTS, even if you're out in Brandon. Yeah,
which is pretty cool. So we can be heard for quite a good range, which is pretty awesome. So we're on the FM band and on your cable box. And this has taken up quite a bit of our time. We spend a lot of time every week putting together a show. Instead of it being bi-weekly on YouTube, it was weekly here. And we essentially do the same thing. Talk about gaming news, talk about video games, do reviews, and that's pretty much it. That's my phone right there. Turn that off.
Essentially doing the same thing, just changed format. You can actually hear our old radio episodes as well online.
Yeah, we'll leave a link in the description.
Yeah, we'll put it in the description. Every episode we've done, essentially, is up there, so you can hear everything if you want.
Yep. There's quite a bit to go through in there. They range from
a lot of content. We talk a lot now.
Yeah, they range from about 55 minutes to sometimes 2.5 hours. So we do some pretty big shows. Last week we did 2 hours on Mass Effect 3, so tons of stuff to listen to, and they're all available for your podcasting medium of choice. And then finally, before we get into what we're going to talk about tonight, essentially what to expect. Now, we can't tell you in specifics exactly what's going to be coming up to the channel.
We don't know entirely amongst ourselves yet. So,
but we have been talking, we have been planning. We're going to try and do more stuff here just before we do a radio show every Friday night. So you will see content come out. We don't have a schedule. We're not going to make a schedule. And but we are going to try and put a lot of work into the content just to kind of balance out the equation, essentially. We do a pretty good job here, so we're trying to kind of come back into the video stuff, and it was just always fun to do that.
Yeah.
So, why we're here tonight, Mass Effect 3, that's what we're going to review. We're going to do a very quick and dirty review of Mass Effect 3.
Spoiler-free.
Yeah, spoiler-free, so don't worry about that. Tom and I talked at length last week about the Mass Effect 3 video game. Wow, why did I say it that way? That sounds really weird. But we talked at length about it. Exactly. And it was... spoiler on the review, go buy it. It's fantastic. It's one of the best video games ever made.
It is one of the best stories ever written. Sidestepping the whole BioWare story issue.
Yeah.
One of the most fantastic pieces of fiction I've ever had to see in, movies, books, video games, anything. It is just a phenomenal story.
Absolutely. For sci-fi, it ranks up there with me with like Ender's Game and Blade Runner. And it's just, it is so packed with a rich history, with... sometimes very cheesy, but sometimes very profound dialogue. And it's, the presentation is top-notch. The voice acting is phenomenal. And
love the cast.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, it's really funny. The guy who voices Garrus is now in some, internet dating commercial.
Really?
It's really funny.
Does he sound like Garrus?
He's a little higher pitched, but you can hear it. You're like, wow, that's Garrus.
That's funny. I did not know that. I'm going to have to check that video because I would really like to see that. The gameplay. Now, this is something that, from Mass Effect 2, which gameplay-wise was nearly perfect, there was very few things, if any, that I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
The shooting was really tight. The biotics, if you chose to use them, were really, really well. The squad combat and the way you can control your squad also worked really well if you chose to use it. Those things were just, packed into a great game. Yeah. If they just took that and moved it to 3, for me, I wouldn't even care.
Yeah, it's... What we've come to love out of Mass Effect is that squad... the small squad aspect about it, and how you can play as tactically as you want, as deep as you want. You can tell them where to go and essentially what to shoot, or you can turn it all automatic and you can just run and gun it like they're not even there.
Yeah, which is what I do because I don't like using the biotic abilities except for Adrenaline Rush but that's because it's bullet time, and if you're a soldier, it's kind of necessary, in my opinion anyway. And they didn't really change much. I think the biggest thing that I noticed right out of the gate was the fact that there was a tiny bit of platforming involved where you can essentially jump across cover by double tapping, which makes the gameplay a lot more smoother. You're not sitting back as far from the action, and you just double tap as soon as you get up to something instead of having to crouch up against it and then tap to get over. Boom, right up against it. You double tap before you're even in cover. You just slide right over. That makes it really, really fast. You're moving, progressing quickly, which is really nice.
Everything is really seamless with the cover. Like, Shepard's more nimble. He's got all the dive rolls he can do now. Like you said, they streamlined how he gets in and around cover. You can just kind of breeze right over stuff as it goes through. It's amazing, and they've even varied the environments a little bit to put a little more height and depth into your combat, so you're not always fighting on a flat field.
You can get the tactical advantage from verticality, which is really cool. A lot of times you can essentially split your squad up where your squad will stay down in one area, and you can tell them to kind of put suppressing fire, and you can go up and over top and flank them from top, which is really cool because that doesn't really happen much in games. Where the AI is coding AI to be smart in games isn't necessarily they're so smart that they always know where you are. It's smart in a way that the AI, the characters, react like actual characters. So the enemies, if they're being suppressed, aren't going to be looking around very much. They're going to be so focused on that fire that's coming, from the front, that if somebody goes up and around and you're now shooting them in the back, it's going to completely catch them off guard. So that is a really, really smart mechanic that they put into the game. Granted, the amount of enemies that they throw at you, sometimes it's, even if you do get the jump on them, they're all going to turn around and you're just going to get lit up.
And the sound design. As we're talking about all the gunplay, the guns, every gun sounds great, unique. It sounds science fiction, like just sciencey enough to be cool and futuristic, but just real enough.
So that it's not like some completely like new age weapon tech. Weapon tech, right? In any kind of like future movie or video game, is very tough to do because at this point right now, with ammunition and the way guns are built, there's essentially no better way to do it. There's just no such thing as plasma weapons or anything because it just doesn't make sense logistically to make a gun yet. But to make a gun that essentially costs more to fire per round than it does to create an arsenal of weapons, it doesn't make any sense. And just the logistics behind the mechanics of it don't make any sense. If you have a gun like an AK-47 that'll fire wet, dry, covered in sand, underground, buried in mud, why the hell would you change that?
Exactly.
You wouldn't. So the balance between realistic, real-world guns and just that nice touch of this has a really cool sound to it. Thermal clips make sense.
Though I like the switch from non-thermal clip universe to thermal clipped universe. All in the span of a month.
It's exactly. They were like, hey, we got these thermal clips. Everybody just I'm gonna adopt it. Everybody adopted it. Whoever came up with that idea is just fucking rich in the Mass Effect world, right? Like that guy is just czar everything.
He's the elusive man.
That's who the elusive man.
Spoiler alert.
The elusive man invented thermal clips, and that's how rich he is.
The soundtrack is just as amazing. Everything you've come to expect out of Mass Effect is just top notch. It's not Jack Wall, which was a little disheartening in the beginning, but once you got into it and it didn't take long, the soundtrack just floored you. It's
fantastic. Tom and I have been listening. We played it a lot on the show last week. I have it on my iPod. I listen to it a lot. And it fits so well with the other two soundtracks done by Jack Wall, who's a fantastic video game composer. If you hadn't told me that it wasn't him, I wouldn't have known. And that's a real statement to how good that composer is. So I feel like, to really kind of do justice to the game, without doing spoilers, we should kind of talk about our impressions of the ending. Again, no spoilers, so don't worry. Mine were, I'm in the minority on this because there's a big amount of backlash on the internet about, what people think of the ending and how your choices are reflected. And I understand that and I get that, although I think that the way a lot of people are taking it is completely in the wrong direction. And I was just reading a story today on Kotaku about how Child's Play doesn't want anything to do with them, being roped into the whole, BioWare changed the ending thing. It's actually, they're like mad about it. So, having said that, I think that the way Mass Effect 3 comes to stop. The final 20 minutes are so intense in just how you feel as the player and what's going on, that essentially for me, I've never felt that way about a video game. They rival any kind of climactic end I've ever played. And just the fight before that is heart-racingly, edge of your seat kind of gameplay. It's super intense. They throw everything. I believe I saw a couple of kitchen sinks in there. I mean, everything.
More than a few.
Yeah, everything that the enemy has is thrown at you at one point, and it is a blast to play.
It is. It rivals some of the biggest space battles I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the biggest just sci-fi wars I've ever seen. Like, it's just...
Star Wars ain't got shit on the fleet coming in, or the fleets, depending on how you played it.
Yeah.
I mean, holy Christ, it is friggin' awesome.
The scale of it is amazing. I feel, though, with a lot of people having issue with certain parts of the closure on the end of the game and asking for a little bit more in certain areas.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it was intentionally left out because DLC. In today's day and age, it's just not the norm to publish a game without at least, a dozen deep of a DLC log behind it.
Yeah.
Mass Effect 2 had like 9 pieces of DLC overall.
Did it have that many? Well, I guess with the weapon packs too, right? And the characters.
Yeah, story packs maybe like 4, and everything else was just weapon packs.
Yeah, and then there was
skin
two characters, and then there was a bunch of day one DLC that you got for free if you bought the game new. All those pack-ins. Yeah, there was actually a lot of DLC. I mean, I guess in my head, DLC is essentially things that you buy that pack on after the game, but.
I think they intentionally cut the story where they did, so that way that they could produce DLC that did make sense with the story.
I hope that's not the case. For me, I think I have more faith in BioWare than that. However, and we were just talking about this before we started the camera, I have more faith in BioWare. I have no faith in EA.
Yeah.
I mean, EA's
pulling the strings. They're back in the project here, so.
Again, this is something we talk about on the radio show a lot. Video games aren't. They are an industry. They're there to make money. That's capitalism. I'm completely for that. Movies are there to make money. Although there's a big amount of artistic integrity that goes into it, at the end of the day, if you're not making money, then that video game, regardless of the cult following, is essentially considered a failure. And while that's not, or it shouldn't be the case, that is the case.
I feel with how the game ends and this crowd reaction really does tell a lot about BioWare's story development in general. Like, the fact that this many people are this upset about the way a game ends just tells volumes to how much thought and care BioWare put into the previous 2 entries to garner this connection and this attachment to the story and the characters.
Yeah, and it was a buddy of yours that was saying that, regardless of how the game ended, BioWare essentially did exactly what they needed to, right? Because everybody is talking, such a watershed moment in gaming, and the fact that people are rallying for free DLC that changes the ending, I think, is completely wrong. I don't think the ending needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Although I would like some closure on a few bits of information that I feel were left out. But the game is a piece of art, and it's about as close as video games have gotten to legitimate art.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that video games aren't art. I completely believe that they are in art and story and design and sound and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just feel like the culmination of everything that video games have been over the past 40, 50, 60 years is represented entirely in Mass Effect 3.
Yeah.
I think it is head and shoulders, in my opinion, one of the best games ever made. And if I was to make a top 10 list of video games, I would have to put Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 into the same game, and it would be in my top 3, absolutely.
Yeah, easily. It's an amazing franchise, and thrilled to have played it.
Yeah,
floored.
I'm going to go back and play through 1 and I'll go all the way to 3 again, just because I feel like, for my money, that's the way it needs to be experienced.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to do so. And I've played through 1 and 2 probably 8 or 9 times. Yeah, a lot of times. So, and I'm very excited to go back, and that is a testament to how good these games are.
Yeah.
Man, if you haven't picked it up by now, and we're 3 weeks away, or 3 weeks since the launch of the game,
yeah,
and you're waiting for our opinion to tell you if it's good or not, go right now. Just go to your GameStop, go to wherever you get your games, and buy that thing, because it is one of the best pieces of gaming I've ever played, and
it's amazing.
you know, I almost wish there was a Mass Effect 4 just because I know that it would be head and shoulders above that
There
one.
will be something else in the Mass Effect universe.
Yeah.
They can still do a lot. There's
There's actually an anime coming out with Cortez,
Yeah,
which I
I
think
saw
is
that.
really funny. I'm not going to watch
Vega.
it. Yeah, a Vega, yeah.
yeah, they've got a lot that they can touch on that they've only mentioned briefly in the rest of the franchise. So I mean, we're definitely not done with Mass Effect, and
No.
I'm glad.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's it. That's Mass Effect 3. Go out and buy it. And if you're watching this now and you've never seen our channel before, go to the other videos and take a look at them. That's kind of what we're going to try and hit, although they're going to be more off the cuff, not scripted. They're just going to be us talking, real earnest kind of stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed this. And if you did, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be putting more content out like this. So, I don't know, do we close the show the same way we always do?
I don't even remember how we did.
I think, well, close it the way we do the radio show. I'm Jeff Ward,
I'm Tom Higgins.
and we'll see you later.